And that helped me to override this weakness of not having a very senior person there, and still we managed to convince the dealers. They took a lot of extra effort, and within a few months, the strategy started working, and ultimately it was a big success. The point I'm making is really the fact that in every situation like this, wherever you're functioning as a leader, you will have barriers of this type. People are extremely competent, but very negative attitude. And at some stage, you have to face up to them. If you cannot convert them, then either you have to change your role and move away, or that person has to go. Okay? So it's not easy to do, because very often such people are they're extremely competent, they're respected well within the team or the department or the company. They've been there for years, probably far more than you have been. So it's not an easy decision to take. But if you've tried everything else and ultimately it comes in, we have to face up to the fact, in order to maintain the integrity of the team, to give anything new that you want to do a chance, the person who is blindly opposing, without reason and without logic, if they don't change, they have to be changed. So it's again a lesson that I would like to pass on to you. The ultimate issue is only in terms of the personality of the leader itself. I think very often it's easy to talk a lot of things, but to do and show is very difficult. It's like when parents tell children when they're young, you don't tell a lie, don't do this, don't do that. And the child sees within the next moment, when some visitor comes and the father is telling a lie very clearly, which the child also knows. So they say, okay, all the preaching is to me, but what you do is different. So what do they really learn? They learn that you tell a lie, but you don't get caught. So that's not what you want. And this is also apparent in positions. Sometimes when you have the power, when you have the authority, when you're the captain, when you're the leader, when you're the department head, you tend to imagine that you can get away with a lot of things. People will not really understand why I'm doing this. You may think you're being too clever, but that's the biggest mistake one can make. Because as they say, you can fool one person all the time, or you can fool all the persons for a little bit of time, but you can't fool all persons all the time. And people see through you. So a leader has to earn the respect and to earn the trust, has to be able to, whatever he is demanding from his team or her team, he or she has to walk the talk. And it can be very much more difficult, because if you're in charge, very often in practical life you have to make compromises, right? Like we just discussed this issue. If somebody is not giving a permission to open the plant, now how long will you go on applying and waiting and waiting and waiting? So you will use some consultant, you will use some way in which that person is satisfied, and then you get the plant open, because it's obviously a far bigger and a more important thing to do, even though you wouldn't have done it in your own case personally. But having taken that decision, you cannot then hide it from your own people by trying to pretend that it is all done this way, that way, etc. People have to ultimately believe that the person who is their leader, you can follow them in right and wrong, because it's in the interest of the company, interest of the department. If we lose that trust ever, then you'll never get the full commitment of the person, because they know that you may not always mean what you say, and you may be saying things which you don't mean. And this is the most difficult thing, I think, that will be expected, but it's the most important thing also. And therefore, to make sure that people have real respect for oneself, we have to make sure that we are able to respect ourselves, and that can only happen if you are truthful to them and to ourselves every time, however difficult the situation may be. But the payoff is that you get tremendous commitment, you get tremendous loyalty, and people then would be willing to, as they say, face the bullets when the time comes. With that kind of a committed team, you can achieve everything. I'd just try to close with one last aspect of being a leader, and that is succession. Now, very often we are involved with ourselves and our own, being a leader, taking orders, giving commands, making things happen, that you can get addicted to that position of power. Now, this is not necessarily only at the CEO or at the principal or the director level. This is at every stage of leadership. And it's important to realize that this is an opportunity that you get only for doing something with that position. That's the first thing. If you occupy a position or a chair with a title and don't do anything, don't bring about any positive change, don't improve, don't develop, just enjoy the benefits of that and go on, then nobody will ever in fact respect you, nor would you have achieved anything. But even a leader who has performed, who's taken a department to much bigger heights, built up an institution must realize that he or she has only limited time and they have to go. Nowadays, of course, in commercial matters, things have become so competitive that you very rarely find someone who is successful all the time. Even if he is a CEO, they're successful for some time, then some other competitor or new technology or new product or something comes in, and then that company goes down, some other company comes up. So that's really the fact of life. But even if one is in a very stable situation, even if one has all the powers in one hand, I think it's important to realize that even in the biggest jobs, maybe 5 years, maybe 7 years is the maximum that one person can make a difference and do good. Beyond that, to hang on would probably be a negative. Probably not good for the institution, you're not building anything. So that brings to the point that a leader at some point must start thinking about, okay, whatever I had to give to this organization, to lead, I have done. Now it's time for somebody else to do something. Even if they are not asking you to go, it's my personal belief that one must then say, okay, enough time here, give somebody else a chance, let me go and do something else. At least one's role and responsibility must change. Don't hang on to the same position for years together and frustrate the hell out of every other good person who's there with you. Because different people are different, and different leadership styles, different people coming with differences in their commitment as well as competence can make new things happen. The same person does get into a rut, and after some time you will not be able to really be creative enough to do something. So if you recognize that fact, I think it's important for a leader to plan for one's succession also, because ultimately what are we there for? You're here to actually develop a sort of institutionalize a new area, a structure, a team that performs, good results come in, and create more happiness and welfare for everybody. And once one has made one's contribution, I think you have to step aside and do something else and give someone else a chance to get to do that. Now, that doesn't have to be always by election or by politics or whatever. It can be by actual development. As part of working with people is the fact that you also see who has the higher competence, who has the higher commitment, and there are systems by which you do appraisal of performance and potential. At the end of that, you give people the chance in a professional manner to get that opportunity to lead. And this is something which you will find is the most difficult thing to do. Everywhere you see people get to the top of where they think they've reached, and then they don't let go. I think that's a very fundamental disservice to society, because society can only improve if new leadership comes in and in a new environment, new things are achieved. And that's what we call progress. But that doesn't happen very often, because the person who's sitting there doesn't want to let go, doesn't want to be insecure, and is enjoying the fruits of that position or the power that comes from it, and then they don't let go. And that's a very big disservice to that institution and to the team of people they're working with. Now, in my own case, all I can say is after every 5th to the 8th year, I have changed only 5 jobs in my career. And in every stage, and it's not always at only senior levels, I've started off also as a trainee, then went to an sales executive, branch manager, regional manager, XYZ, then a business head, then a company head, and things like that. But I was conscious that with a certain span of time, if I had done whatever I could, not that my task could be complete, nobody can achieve perfection, but if I felt I had spent enough time at that, maybe 3 years in some cases, maybe 7 years in some cases, at a certain logical completion time, when the project is over, or when one is clear that there are somebody ready to take over, I voluntarily made a change and moved on. And I'm happy to say in almost every one of those cases, the company was able to select one of my team members as a successor and give them that role. So an opportunity from within for leadership given is obviously to that person's credit, firstly. But one can also take satisfaction that you helped to play a small role in that happen, even though you didn't choose. Somebody else chooses it after you leave. But the fact that they chose somebody from within rather than somebody from outside shows that they had the confidence that things are working well and someone can be given a chance. I think that's one of the most satisfactory things as a leader you can feel, that not only have you accomplished something with a team, but you also handed the baton to somebody else or in your own team who would then take the leadership and take it in whichever way. May not be your way at all. In fact, in many cases, it will be a different way. But the institution would have then developed and gone to a higher level of performance. Okay? Well, I hope that at least some of these points made some sense. And thank you for your patience. I think I have taken probably a slightly longer time than I should have, but if you have the patience to ask any questions, I'd be willing to answer them. Thank you very much for listening.
About values in terms of the leadership. I mean, I don't know, given the national situation and what is going on, as you've been referring to Anna Hazare quite a few times. I mean, do you, and I'm not be showing pessimism or anything, but do you really think the industries and the other rest of society are so honest that they can also deserve a great ideal leadership like Gandhiji in those days?
You see, it's a very important question, but I think the answer is in not, aspiring for perfection. On any aspect, we will not aspire to say make everything all right, right? Even if some improvement comes, you'll probably be happy, because perfection is a good, let's say, aim to have, but practically you must understand it's not possible. So in the societal situation particularly, when the leadership positions very often are with people who have got there for other motives than merely serving the people, what do? I think we need to have the confidence in ourselves that in our own small area, wherever we work, we can make a difference, firstly. Which I think most of us do. We will not be dishonest within our own family. With your friend, you will not lie and cheat and do things. You will not sacrifice, your team's interest, in the way in which you have control over. I think in those small ways, people are making a difference, and I think that can still survive. Our situation, I would feel, is definitely not as good as it should be, but it allows individuals and teams and organizations which are wanting to go by the straight path, they can still do it. It's more difficult, but it can be done. I think we need to be, if you want to be in that moral path, we must still be able to fight that and do it. That's one. And this also means that let's not get, disillusioned by aspiring for perfection of human society or India or anything. We all realize that human evolution itself has come over a long thousands of years. Maybe it will take many more hundreds of years for that kind of ideal society to form. Not in our lifetime. But it still should not allow, therefore I also become negative. That's maybe a giving up. And if I have authority and confidence in myself, maybe I can make a difference in my own small way. I think those of us who can do that will probably be at least at peace with ourselves and still see this and not get totally disillusioned. Okay, I know it's not enough to try and go and change society, but I think that's obviously difficult. As we see even today, if all the political parties are forced to take election funding only through the illegitimate means, and every person who comes first to be elected has to recover that investment, how is it possible to get elected? If you get nominated to the legislature or Rajya Sabha, then you don't have that problem. But then you're beholden to somebody for something else. So if you keep quiet when somebody else is robbing the bank, you're still culpable in your view. I think those of us who have the choices to lead our own moral way in our personal life, I think we are lucky. Okay? When you come to more and more into contact with society, I think maybe we cannot have the strictest personal moral standards, but there can be standards which can at least still be in the greater good and not for one's personal selfishness. If that is out, maybe still you could do things. For instance, you'll get a permit to put a factory where you may not go and bribe the person directly or forced to. You may use a consultant and pay by check. Okay, so from an individual moral perspective, that is also dishonest. But from a commercial, from a group societal point of view, I think that's a practical compromise you make. In order that you create that factory coming into being, creating so many jobs, so you have to weigh the greater good and do that. And it's not personally benefiting, hopefully, the promoter or you for doing that. This is not I don't know if it's the answer you want to hear, but I feel this is how I can go to sleep at night. Okay. Yeah. But I do strongly believe that, in our personal behavior, in whichever area we are in, we can make some difference. You can't change the world, but you can change the 4 or 5 people who are working with you, and maybe that's something.
Any other questions?
I think it's a little late, so anyway, thank you.
Yeah, let's thank Mr. Palani Kumar again for his talk. And we have a memento. Can I ask Ravi or one of his, maybe the whole, why don't all of you come up? Yeah.
So it was my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks.
They all need to know. They are from 71. Thank you.